deemed the celebrity whisperer by Playboy.
This is the best interview of the day.
Thanks for having me.
You hit the nail on the head.
100%.
Period, yeah.
Touch them. They're cracking me up.
Wear them, baby. She's good.
Taylor Ferber.
Okay, I want an immediate refund on my George Santos OnlyFans subscription for $29.99 a month because I signed up to see George Santos wiggle around his titty tassels with his popping lip gloss, and that is not what I am getting. Give the people what they want, George. Okay, I'm even in my finest OnlyFans blue, best for you, bitch. The least you could do is do a little twerk and do a little work while you be lying up here like you are a pregnant teen mom on Maury, okay? So George Santos is choosing the hustle life, okay? The hustle, he did not pursue the hustle life this intentionally, you guys. I think that the hustle life chose him. So if you haven't heard by now, George Santos, who was the first openly gay Republican congressman up in New York, he was ousted because this guy was lying left, right, and sideways. Like he gave Greg Fokker, okay, in Meet the Parents, a run for his money because this guy was just, why are you always lying about all kinds of things that was, honestly, it was so entertaining.
I'll indulge you this. I just discovered what OnlyFans was about 3 weeks ago when it was brought up in a discussion in my office.
What do you think?
And I was oblivious to the whole concept.
I just can't tell the truth. I'm not even mad at it because this is, all the world's a circus and we are merely the players, right? Like I swap stage for circus because is there anything more accurate in this life? So I have to tell you, well, today we're going to be talking about not OnlyFans, but kind of, okay, is what influences us. The people out there who indeed have been and are influencing the masses, why they have influence and why we allow them to have the influence that they have, right? But some of the things that George Santos lied about, not George Soros. Imagine George Soros, this guy like up in here in OnlyFans, like giving it his all in a thong on a Wednesday. I don't think so. But George Santos just lied about, like you would think he was a New Jersey housewife. He was lying. He's caught in his lies about serious things like, allegedly like money laundering and wiring and all this kind of lies about how he spent his money. But things like, he's like this telling tales about how he is like from the derivative line, a bloodline of Holocaust survivors and how he has this Jewish heritage. Come to find out, he's like, I am a proud Catholic man. I stand with Jesus. He lied about, where he went to college, allegedly. Lied about things like having employees who died in the Pulse shooting in Florida. Lied about even his own sexuality, being like, I am loud, proud, gay, hear me roar, only for people to discover in the archives of his life that he was married to a woman. And I think my favorite, and I can say this because I'm a tri-state bitch, okay, is the lie that his mother passed away from 9/11, not actually when the towers came down, but died from cancer, of the toxins and the smoke, only to find out this bitch was somewhere floating around in like Fuji, okay, having the time of her life. So with that being said, the only thing, by the way, like we can talk about it and knock it all. I just think that this is so on brand for him. Like, again, this guy is like he is giving me and my hair and my lip gloss like a run for its money on the daily. But this is like so on brand for him. And I love this. And it got me thinking too about the OnlyFans mockery on the whole. We always see these stories from like the New York Post about how this OnlyFans girl is so miserable and da-da-da-da-da, right? And it really has this bad rap about people who are just low lives and trying to make a buck and aren't like doing anything with their lives and what have you. I'll have you know, hey, if you don't know this already, and if you're new to the show, like, ring, ring, bitch, because you're about to get a news flash, not a real flash here with my giving sexy blueberries today, but a news flash. I actually had an OnlyFans, And, honestly, like George Soros, Santos, fucking George Soros did not ask for this. Like, he did not be asked to be dragged into this mess, just like he didn't be asked to dragged into the Taylor Swift CIA conspiracy theory mess. But like George Santos, I don't really know that I was giving the people what they want, because when you think about influence, this is what a lot of it is, right? Is giving the people what they want. And the people, unbeknownst to them or not, we're going to talk about that. Like, are we just robots? Are we just real life, Westworld characters mind-numbingly following these people? But my experiment with OnlyFans, my whole thing is, again, tits out, brain out. So I was like, okay, how do I capitalize on this bitch and have a little fun and have a little experiment? Like, everybody, take the sticks up your assholes and put them in George Santos's. He would like that, I'm sure. And let's just have fun with this. So what I tried to do in the spirit of my message, tits out, brains out, smart and sexy, is to bring my very sassy cultural political commentary to OnlyFans. So I would post these really sexy, suggestive photos, but every single one had a little caption that, again, was a super sort of poignant, catchy little commentary of what was going on, either politically, socially, culturally, you name it. And it did kind of play off the photo itself well. Since I did not have 3 dildos in my ass at once, it wasn't worth the bang for its buck, no pun intended. So, it was a fun run. We had a good ride, just like, the end of your night at prom, hitting it in the backseat, hitting it and quitting it. That's what, my OnlyFans journey was really like. So no regrets there. But, you hear also all these stories of all of these women, teachers, firefighters, cops, and they're like, fuck this shit. I'm going to go shake some titties and make $2 million a year, right? So you see these stories all of the time. And, you can feel conflicted about OnlyFans, just like how I feel conflicted about influencer culture, which I'm going to get to in a second. But you can't knock the bitches' hustle. These bitches are out here working for a buck. And you know what? They're laughing their happy asses to the bank, right? So George Santos, we shall see. Again, he is not going to be flapping his ass cheeks for us, because he is really taking his platform to OnlyFans to see what's really going on behind the scenes and expose what's happening and give people a day in the life. And so, Georgie, let me just tell you, okay? Again, I have no regrets about my OnlyFans journey. It was super fun. Ultimately, like I said, in the end of the day, didn't end up being worth it. Didn't blow up like the SpaceX rocket we're going to be talking about that it should have. Because again, I get it. People aren't going to OnlyFans to be intellectually stimulated, right? Perhaps. Fair enough. Can't win them all. But, we'll see what happens with this guy. But like I said, it is super on brand for him. People think of OnlyFans as all kinds of things, just associating it with the hustle and maybe tacky and maybe trying the most and doing extra and being shameless. So you know what? Let's see what happens for you there. I can't knock that it is on brand for you. Okay. So speaking of the age of the influencers, I have another update for you. And that is, I feel like we are transported straight to Oz, because all I have to say is, ding dong, the witch is dead, honey. And when I say the witch, I mean the age of the influencers, allegedly, okay? So I saw this post the other day in the story that I thought was super interesting, in which this marketing business basically broke down why people ain't buying the sugar bear hair bullshit anymore. And I'll have you know, so the influencer culture and marketing agency, the whole menage a trois, twisted world that it is a $21 billion industry. And and you know what? You can mock it. You can laugh at it all you want. But guess what? 72% of you bitches who are on social media follow an influencer in some way, shape, or form. And you know what? It's funny. I met these 2 little girls the other day, these bougie 13-year-old girls who had their nails. I'm wearing these press on Target nails. These bitches were head to toe Fleek. Remember Fleek? Yeah, we're bringing it back. Okay. But anyway, I was telling them about all the celebrities I've interviewed, this, that, and they're like, oh my God, have you interviewed Alex Earl? And I'm like, who the fuck is Alex Earl? Right. But I'm just, if you know Alex Earl, she's an influencer girl. But that is where the culture's at. And it's so fascinating because it is this culture. Again, I feel conflicted about it, as do you all, as does the every person, because it's sort of that famous for doing nothing. Like, I'm going to let you watch me put my beeswax chapstick on and put on a water bra, whatever the fuck, like nobody cares. So it's not like a jealousy thing. There's a part of me, it's again, a little conflicting because it's like, okay, good for you. It's like the OnlyFans thing. You're like, you know what? You're hustling. You're making a buck. You are vacationing in Turks and Caicos to show bitches what you bought at Amazon that day. Like, congrats to you. Then on the other end of it, I'm like, it is rotting the youth of American brains in thinking that their shopping expedition to Target is going to be their ticket out of here and that they're going to be the next fucking Meryl Streep. It's like, sweetheart, learn a goddamn skill. Learn a skill. Learn how to read, write, science, math. Go be a doctor or lawyer. Go work for Elon Musk in all of his Asperger's glory for all I care. Okay, so that's why I feel a little bit conflicted. And same thing with the George Santos thing. We see that a lot of the times, this is what really gets me thinking about how we are mindlessly following people like a bunch of little minions in Despicable Me, the sequel or not, I don't give a fuck, because you find out how so many of these influencers are a big fat sham. A big fat sham, people. How many times do you hear, oh, this influencer who is huge for mommy life, like, drowned her fucking golden retriever. I know that's dark, but I'm sorry. This is like what we're hearing. Just like take a breeze over again, back to the New York Post. It ain't hard to find. You hear all these stories. Oh, this woman was famous for her 1,600 kids and husband and John and Kate plus 8 and da-da-da. And meanwhile, these bitches are like Mr. and Mrs. Smith trying to assassinate each other in real life behind the scenes or have some crazy sex swinger parties, all this shit. Like, no judgment. I'm just saying, like, it ain't the public facade. Lies, lies, and more lies. So it gets me thinking, do we really want what's real? Because the whole point of that influencer post of like the influencer, the age of the influencer is dead is because we're all in on the lie. Like, no one's going to buy sugar bear hair. No one's going to buy detox tea. No one's going to, you know what? Like, even the My Pillow days have had their day. And so it talked about how people want to see what's real. They want to see the faces, the people in operations, behind the scenes, the people cleaning the toilets, like make it a real human connection. And I got to say with all this, it's even like how you think about how the people like a George Santos have so much influence. Don't worry. I'm getting to the Marjorie Taylor Greens and the AOCs of it all because it's like the more fucking outrageous it is, the more notoriety these people get. So I'm like, do we really want what's real or do we want what is the most goddamn shameless and entertaining? Like, do we just need to be pulled and have an exorcism on ourselves out of our own monotonous lives at this point? I mean, really, like, think about who your idols are, people, and what it says about you. So getting to what's real, what do we have next but my fave topic? I mean, me and this topic may as well be the Babysitters Club reboot, being on the seesaw, braiding each other's hair, because we are just like this. Me and TikTok. Okay. Good old TikTok. TikTok has a burn book on my ass. Like Regina George would be rolling in her grave. Could never. Like, dethroned the bitch, okay? Every other one of my TikTok posts violate community guidelines. And I'm like, I didn't even say anything. I merely breathed and I'm violating community guidelines. Like, I don't know what to tell you. What is even happening over here? The CCP no liking me. That's all I can say. So we're in this big conversation right now about a TikTok ban, and it's getting so out of control because now people are like, oh, it's stomping on free speech and it's really draconian and it's creators thing and blah, blah, blah. Sweetheart, the CCP is peeking into all your nudes, bitch, okay? They know your whereabouts. They know your uncle's house. They know your latest thong expedition in Victoria's Secret with or without the plus size mannequins up front, okay? They have all of our data, not to mention that they are infiltrating and poisoning the minds of American youth, hence why I post a common sense fact-checked reality-based comments about a number of topics, it somehow violates, quote, community guidelines. Like, riddle me that. Unless you are like, I love terrorism, loud and proud, let's terrorize and kill and behead everybody, they're gonna block your ass. So it's been this whole debate now about banning it or having an American company buy it out, and I'm all for that, right? You have people like big tycoons in business. You have like Kevin O'Leary, Mr. Wonderful, talking about democratizing TikTok, bringing it to the US. Like, I'm all for that, yes. Let's like restore somewhat of the youth's American psyche of like the collective 50 brain cells that they have, okay? Okay, I'm sorry to throw the ones who are actually smart under the bus, but sorry, like, y'all are getting roped in because it is a hot ass mess, okay? And I saw this very, very funny post, and it talked about, yes, we have all of these, big tech business leaders wanting to swoop in and restore TikTok and restore education, because meanwhile, they're teaching us that terrorism is the best thing since sliced bread. They're teaching us how to jiggle your ass all the way through a Burger King to show your milkshake brings all the way to the yard. No one cares. Meanwhile, they're teaching the Chinese kids arithmetic, fucking science, calculus, mathematics, all kinds of shit, okay? Just making us dumber and them smarter, all part of their world domination plan. And you know what? Like every other conspiracy theory, this shit will prove to be true. And I, like my OnlyFans, will have no regrets. But I did see in this post, it was really funny. It was like, hey, can we get a vote to get the Kardashians to take over in TikTok? Because you know what? They got it all. They really got it all. Like, they have the political undertones, but for the most part are partisan, They have Kim K up in the White House reforming law. They have Caitlyn Jenner, who is a controversial figure on both sides, and like both sides have an issue with her on both for different reasons. So it's perfect. Like, they obviously know how to make this shit their bitch, make billions of dollars, make it classy, make it sassy, and it's just the right amount of controversy. So I say, like Kim K has freed her nipples all around town, free the thought for not the THOT thought, but the thought in our brains on TikTok. On TikTok, Kris Jenner, come on. TikTok for Kris. You got this. I'm here for it. And see, this is why I'm also conflicted about the TikTok thing on a whole. I'm sorry, the influencer thing on a whole, because even like the amounts of times when I was in LA and I had to be around these people always ask me, like, who's the best celebrity you ever met? Who is the worst? And I always will just say, look, guys, I found time and time again that the A-list ride or dies OGs, like I'm talking about like Matthew McConaughey, Morgan Freeman, John Travolta, right? Like Scientology may or may not be onto something. I've said this before. Like, they're clearing his way on up, this guy, class acts. It was always like the little fuckers on Vanderpump Rules and all this, or this TikToker that clearly, like, sweetheart, nobody like knows you or gives a fuck about you, who thought they were such hot shit. So I think that's why I have a little like chip on my shoulder about it, because again, it's like, what have you done for us? Like, you have no business being famous. Like, go get a life. But I do respect, technically the Kardashians are the first of the influencers, and I respect them. So is it discriminatory of me to say, hey, Sally, with your, braces and your lip gloss collection, like, nobody cares, like, get out of your cul-de-sac and go get a hobby. But then I can definitely applaud what Kim Kardashian has done and being literally arguably one of the most influential women on the planet in business, law, lifestyle, all kinds of things, right? So I can't knock it. So you know what? Fine. Fine. I will discriminate against I will arbitrarily pick influencers I do and do not respect. Just like college campuses arbitrarily pick when they decide to back free speech. I mean, potato, like, it all works out. So going off while we wrap up here, I, have been really interested and get a little tech nerd on you for a second, but because TikTok has been cock-blocking our existence, cock-blocking our minds, may as well be, I was just going to be really different, but literally may as well be like shoving two cocks in our ears and in our eyeballs. Like that's how informative and educational TikTok actually is in certain realms. But I've been thinking a lot about, especially as a creator, as somebody who does have eyes and ears that work and who consumes information, this really new exciting world of Web3 and technology and where it's going to all take us, right? Because the truth here, I'm going to human speak it for you. Because the truth is, we are sick of these platforms, whether it be YouTube, TikTok, even like Uber, PayPal, controlling our lives. Like back off, please. So the exciting thing about this, even for a creator, is to have a platform that you solely own. You're autonomous. All of the transactions are completely transparent. People can't meddle with it, right? You and your audience, you are like this. You are like one in the same. Like George Santos, and his strap on. Like it is just, you are right there. And that's what's really exciting about it is that transparency and the ownership, and no one can go in and mess with, who's seeing your stuff or your audience or how you're getting paid. And it's just all out there, pop locking and dropping on the blockchain. So I'm really excited about that because you can actually see like all this algorithm bullshit. It'll be hopefully what they're saying, open sourcing, right? Which means we are able to see the trail of it is out there, sweetie, in the open, like the aforementioned Mari test. You are the father. You are not the father. It's going to be out there for the world and no one can change it, meddle with it, censor it, tweak it, what have you. And so what's interesting too, when you think about the future of Web3, AI is a part of that. That's already happening. Like if you're not having sex already with some kind of sex robo bot, congrats, because it's about to happen. But like your fleshlight could never, run for the hills. But this also really fascinating when you talk about influence, right? Like Scarlett Johansson going in on OpenAI. They're the company who owns ChatGPT, and Sam Altman for basically using her voice, like her Joaquin Phoenix style. She was the star of that, without her permission, for their new interface called Sky. And it's really sketchy time because she actually, I guess Sam Altman had reached out to her for permission. She said no. And so they are using a voice that Joaquin Phoenix jerks off to, right? And she's like, what's the tea? And so that's another thing when you think about influence, you see all these deep cuts and fake porn of all these stars. And that's where it gets really scary. And that's where, if you're ScarJo, if you're thinking who cares if someone is, using your voice, so what? But then if I'm her, I'm going, I don't blame her. I'm like, bitch better have my money. Okay. First things first. So with all of this too, and with influence, it really got me thinking back to a little bit about earlier, about things that you have a ScarJo who's minding her business and she's like, could you please not step on my dress? Can you get away? She's like, I'm trying to make those Black Widow royalty checks or what's left of them, for the love of God, because the theaters were absolutely annihilated. But I actually was on that movie set and interviewed her. Tell you about that story another time. But back to the George Santos of it all, right? Again, even with all this TikTokers, influencers, you look at these people, even in politics. I think about this with the George Santos. I'm like, we have the most brightest, allegedly leading, cutting edge minds in the world. Silicon Valley dominates everybody. Our innovations and our creations here, right? And our success and achievements. And these are the assholes who are representing us. Even you have AOC, again, Marjorie Taylor Greene. Don't even get me started on Kamala Harris, okay? Talk about lies, lies, lies. This bitch is acting like Joe Biden is making her roll on the floor laughing. I'm like, this is the hoot of the party. I'm like, this dude can barely fucking keep his eyes open, okay? You have people like Brianna Joy Gray. Don't even get me started on her, who was recently fired from the Hill. And so it reminds me, same thing with all this. Are we just drawn to the most outrageous, opportunistic people from have our lives become a reality show? And on a more human side of that, before we wrap, who has reemerged from the caves of Hannibal Lecter's dungeons, but Armie Hammer, right? So basically, and I would talk about the Armie Hammer, especially when it was really taboo and it was really sensitive and first happening. I've talked about this. But basically, he's come out now and he has said that this entire experience, he was canceled, dropped from huge movie deals, WME, everything, when allegations came out that he was, sexual misconduct and that he literally like ate people's limbs and fingers, basically, all kinds of Me Too allegations. He denies them, says it was consensual, but basically now after being like a busboy somewhere in the Bahamas, he's reemerged and he did a podcast interview in which he references The Hero's Journey, right? Which is an iconic book, which is what Star Wars is based off of, but basically saying how what happened to him, not that I'm calling Armie Hammer some hero, right? But even I can relate to this, the idea of versions of you having to die off before you transition, like not Caitlyn Jenner style perhaps, but mentally, physically, spiritually transition into the next phase of your life. So he talks about how all this had to happen. It had to kill off parts of my life, my ego, how I was living, treating people in order to, reemerge as the butterfly I am today, And so, you talk about that. But what's crazy even about that is in light of this episode today, I went back in the archives and you talk about how people put up such a facade. And granted, like Armie Hammer, super handsome, like Nepo baby, like Hollywood actor, the whole thing. But I actually had an interview with his former wife, Elizabeth Chambers, in 2020, merely a year before all this went down. Same thing. I was reporting for Us Weekly, so it's all the bullshit. Like, talk about how you make each other dinner and blah, blah, like shit no one cares about. But she said, like, how we have to water the grass where it's greenest and, nurture our relationship and keep a long distance relationship. And I want all the babies and blah, blah, blah. So it makes you think again with all of this, like, do we want what's real? Like, do we want to know the troubles that were going on in their relationship? Or do we want to know the white picket fence Brady Bunch shit she spewed to me that day, Which again, I don't know how much she knew and I'm not knocking her at all. I'm just saying, we seem to be drawn to this glossy facade, but at the same time, we want, quote, what's real. So like, what is it? So speaking of what's real, as we close, we're going to do the threesome of your lives with who other than Elon Musk and Jack Dorsey. Because Elon Musk, so I've actually been reading the new book about him, and it's a biography. This man, he's written a lot of biographies before. He runs a nonpartisan organization in Washington, but he's written books about, Albert Einstein, all kinds of people. And he followed Elon Musk around for a period of time. The book came out last fall, but it was really interesting to me because, when it comes to influence, all we hear about Elon Musk for the most part, let's be real, is how he is just this like greedy tech lord trying to like overrun and overthrow everything. And I actually was really surprised to learn not only that Elon is an Aspie baby, he is Asperger's all the way. And I honestly love that for him. And it talks about like why he's so successful because he's like such a dick and straightforward, but it's not because he wants to be, it's just that lack of empathy. But you know what? That's what gets shit done. Like Steve Jobs up there, am I right? But I was really surprised to learn that Elon Musk from a very young age, obviously child prodigy, fucking genius, not only was he super interested in like tech and, innovation and invention in games, but in humankind and mankind and how he had such a taking to philosophy, why people think the way that they do, psychology. And when you think about it, like even when he took over Twitter, it was such this big like uproar brouhaha because they were like, just another thing he's trying to conquer. And it actually makes total sense, right? Being that Twitter was the dominant, you have world leaders on Twitter. So being that Twitter was the dominant digital public sphere of how we communicated, I thought that it makes total sense. And so I love that for Elon Musk. Like, let's go Elon Musk. In all this I think that is actually kind of the perfect symbiotic relationship of what is real and what makes humans tick and having influence, right? Like, is an Elon Musk. And also how he just like doesn't give a fuck. Like he'll settle huge meetings with multi-billionaires over like an arm wrestle. Like, love that Aspie moment for him. But lastly, who do we bring it back to? The godfather of them all with his like long Jesus beard now and sandals and like some hemp shirt probably somewhere out there, but Jack Dorsey, okay, who formerly was the head of Twitter, stepped down, was a whole thing, right? But came to ultimately reveal that he didn't like all of the censorship and how it was cherry picked and, how information was funneled out and what have you. But here comes Jack Dorsey. Okay. Jack Dorsey literally resurrects from the grave like Jesus. And it's perfect because he's looking like him these days. And he says that this entire thing happening right now, he's like, this might sound a little crazy, but this whole thing that's happening isn't really about free speech. This entire culture war, and we both know, look, I'm a free speech bitch, ride or die forever. But we all know both sides have weaponized the idea of, quote, free speech. Both sides have been shut down, censored in their own way. But he says it's not ultimately about free speech. This is about free will, this battle we're facing right now. And he even came to admit we have algorithms that control us, that program us. And so it really makes you think, in your little Barbie and Ken brains in there. I know that you guys got them, and that's why I love you. And that's what makes you so hot, right? But really to take what Daddy Dorsey said into consideration, and that perhaps, free speech, sure, maybe it's weaponized, shut down, this, that. We're working on that. That's why we got this show. But really, I think he's onto something here in the bigger picture of free will. And when it comes to influence, and when it comes to who we let influence our lives, who we're listening to, paying attention to, who are you going to let influence you? And moreover, what does that say about you? On or off OnlyFans, bitch?